My husband's secret Reddit account turned me into the villain in our marriage. My husband used a secret Reddit account to destroy my reputation. He turned me into a villain for thousands of strangers, and then used their comments to gaslight me in real life. So I decided to post the full story. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and my husband is 31. We've been together for 7 years, married for 4. If you'd looked at us from the outside, you'd probably say we were a normal, boring, stable couple. We both work office jobs, own a townhome in the suburbs, have a badly behaved golden retriever who thinks he's a lapdog, do Taco Tuesday and date nights and Netflix binges. Very standard millennial marriage. At least that's what I thought. My husband, I'll call him Mark, has always been extremely online. He's the kind of person who has a Discord server for every hobby, argues in comment sections for fun, and says, "I saw a thread about this," at least once a day. I knew he used Reddit a lot. He'd show me funny memes or insane stories from AITA or relationship subs. Sometimes he'd read a post out loud and pause to ask, "What would you do?" Or "Who do you think is the asshole here?" It was kind of our thing. I like stories, so I didn't mind. He had a main account he wasn't secretive about. It was mostly gaming subs, tech stuff, and the occasional comment on our slash movies. Nothing weird. What I didn't know was that he also had a throwaway account he used to talk about our marriage. Not in a looking for advice way. In a carefully editing reality to make himself look like a victim and me look like a monster way. The first crack in the facade happened about a year ago. We were having one of those recurring arguments that never seem to fully resolve, in our case about housework and emotional labor. I work full-time just like he does, but somehow I was always the one noticing we were out of toilet paper, scheduling vet appointments, remembering birthdays, planning holidays, wiping down the kitchen, and doing laundry. He helped, but only when I asked. If I didn't ask, it simply didn't exist in his mind. One night after a long day, I snapped a little. Nothing wild, I just said, "I can't keep being the only adult who notices things. I need you to see what needs to be done without me laying out a to-do list like you're a teenager." He immediately got defensive. "You make it sound like I do nothing," he said. "I take out the trash, I mow the lawn, I fix things when they break. You took out the trash once this week after I reminded you 3 times," I said. "And the lawn thing is once every 2 weeks for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm handling 50 little things a day you don't even see." He called me ungrateful and said I was blowing things out of proportion. We argued, went in circles, went to bed annoyed at each other. Very married people stuff. The next day he seemed calmer, almost smug. At one point he said, "You know, I asked some people what they thought about yesterday, and literally everyone agreed you're overreacting." That stung. I asked who he talked to. I knew he hadn't told his parents or mine. We try not to drag family into small fights. He shrugged. "Just some people online. Neutral third parties." I didn't think much of it then. I figured maybe he posted on some generic relationship forum like, "Wife upset about chores, am I wrong?" And a bunch of dudes were like, "No man, she's nagging." Annoying, but not the end of the world. I was wrong. It was the beginning. Over the next few months, this became a pattern. Whenever we disagreed about money, chores, how often we have sex, how much time he spends gaming, he'd disappear into his office for a while and come back later with, "I asked on Reddit and pretty much everyone said you're being unfair." It started to get under my skin. Once I said, "Can I see what you posted? Maybe I can answer people's questions or explain my side." He froze for a split second, then said, "It's anonymous. I don't want to mix my online life with real life. You just get upset at the comments." That should have been a bigger red flag than it was. At that time, I still trusted that, even if he was venting, he was at least being honest about what happened. Fast forward to about 3 months ago. I was homesick with a nasty cold. The kind that glues you to the couch in a blanket burrito with tea and tissues. Mark had forgotten his laptop at home and texted me around lunchtime. "Hey, can you log into my email real quick and send me the slides I left on my desktop? Need them for a meeting." He gave me his email password. I logged in, found the file, attached it to an email back to him, hit send. When I went back to the inbox, I noticed a flood of notifications from Reddit. Your post has a new comment. You have a new message. That sort of thing. I wasn't trying to snoop at first, but one subject line caught my eye. Your post about your controlling wife. I stared at it. I knew I shouldn't click. I clicked. It opened a DM from some random user thanking him for standing up to his emotionally abusive spouse and encouraging him to get out before she traps you with a kid. My heart started pounding. I clicked on the linked post. It took me to an AITA thread written by a throwaway account. The username was something generic, no personal info, but the story was unmistakably ours. Except it wasn't. The title was, "AITA for refusing to do my wife's never-ending list of chores when I already work full-time to provide for us?" My stomach dropped. In his version of events, I didn't work full-time. I had a flexible remote job where I just sat on the couch and did things on my laptop sometimes. He, on the other hand, was the sole real provider, exhausted from 60-hour weeks. He works a standard 40, sometimes 45. He said I demanded. He immediately washed dishes the second he got home, screamed at him if he wanted to relax first, and kept inventing new chores just to control how he spent his time. He described me as constantly criticizing, never satisfied, treating him like a maid, and acting like I'm the only one allowed to be tired. He conveniently left out the dozens of unseen tasks I did all day. He left out the part where I also contribute to the mortgage. He left out my actual words and replaced them with wild, shrill paraphrases. The comments were brutal. "Your wife sounds like a nightmare. She's abusing you. Start a separate bank account before she baby traps you. You need to leave. This won't get better." And mixed in a few that made my blood run cold. "Record her when she yells at you. Courts take emotional abuse seriously. Document everything if you're planning to divorce. Judges can be biased toward women." There were thousands of upvotes. My hands were shaking. I clicked his post history on the throwaway. There were dozens of them. Months worth. Titles like, "For locking myself in my office when my wife tries to start another fight? Is it normal for your spouse to control what you eat? Wife keeps picking fights about my female coworker. I don't know what else to do." In one, he described me as screaming for an hour because I found out he had lunch with a coworker. In reality, I calmly asked him why he lied. He told me he was too busy for lunch, and I later saw on Instagram that he'd been at a restaurant with that coworker. The issue wasn't lunch, it was the lying. In another, he claimed I humiliated him in front of his friends by mocking his salary and saying I could do better. What actually happened was that someone jokingly asked when we were buying a bigger house, and I said, "Not anytime soon, we're both underpaid and everything costs $1 million right now." Apparently that became, "My wife shames me for not making enough." The more I read, the more surreal it felt. He took every minor disagreement we'd ever had, twisted it, stripped out context, and exaggerated my worst moments while minimizing his. Anytime I raised a concern, it became another one of her crazy fights. Any boundary I tried to set turned into me being controlling. Any tearful conversation where I said, "I feel alone in this," became she screamed and called me useless. And the comments were feeding him a narrative. "You're being abused. She's a narcissist. Start planning your exit. Secretly record her. She'll lose it and you'll finally have proof." I felt nauseous. At some point, without even realizing it, I started reading one post out loud. I needed to hear how insane it sounded. Apparently I was so focused I didn't hear the front door. "Enjoying the show?" I jumped. Mark was standing in the doorway of the living room, earlier than usual, staring at me with a strange expression. Part anger, part embarrassment, part something else I couldn't quite place. "How long have you been home?" I asked. "Long enough to see you snooping through my messages," he said. "Nice." I held up the laptop. "What is this?" I asked. My voice was shaking. Who are you talking about here? Because it's not me. He rolled his eyes. Oh, so now you care about my Reddit posts, he said. Funny, because whenever I asked for your perspective before, you just dismissed it. No, I said. I didn't dismiss it. I said it made me uncomfortable that you were airing our private issues online. But I assumed you were at least describing things honestly, not whatever this is. It is honest, he snapped. Just because you don't like how you look in the mirror doesn't mean the reflection is lying. I read a paragraph aloud, the one where he called me unemployed and living off his income. I work full-time, I said. 40 hours a week. You know that. Why did you say I don't? He shrugged. You work from home on a laptop, he said. It barely counts. You can take breaks whenever you want. It's not the same as my job. I stared at him. You understand that's still a job, right? I asked slowly. My paycheck says otherwise. He waved a hand, dismissive. The internet doesn't need every detail, he said. They just need the general picture. You make my life harder. That's all that matters. That sentence hit me like a slap. You make my life harder. Not we've had issues. Not we're both struggling. Just, I'm the burden. I realized then that this wasn't just him venting or exaggerating for karma. He genuinely believed his own edited version of reality, and those thousands of strangers were reinforcing it. I can't believe you've been doing this for months, I said quietly. Twisting everything, turning me into some cartoon villain, so people will pat you on the head and tell you to leave me. His jaw tightened. The only reason I even started posting was because you never listened to me, he said. Every time I try to talk about how I feel, you make it about you. I needed an outside perspective. An outside perspective, I repeated, based on lies. It's not lies, it's my side, he shot back. You're always telling your friends who knows what about me. At least I keep it anonymous. I blinked. For the record, I said, the most I've ever said to my friends is, we're fighting about chores again and it sucks. I don't write long essays calling you emotionally abusive and begging people to help me escape. He scoffed. Maybe you should, he muttered. They'd probably agree. We went in circles like that for a while. He kept insisting that he was just sharing his feelings, that he needed support, that the comments helped him realize he wasn't crazy. I kept pointing out the lies, the omissions, the way he weaponized those comments in real life. Whenever I told him something hurt me, he'd say, I asked online, they said that's normal, you're overreacting. Now I knew where that came from. Finally, I asked a question that had been buzzing in the back of my mind since I saw those DMs. Are you planning to divorce me? I asked. He looked away. I don't know, he said. Sometimes, yeah. I think about it. Everyone in the comments keeps saying I should. It's hard not to. He said it like they were his real friends and I was some background character in his story. That night, I slept in the guest room. Over the next few days, things were tense. He alternated between sulking, rage, and cold politeness. At one point, he actually tried to flip it on me. You violated my privacy, he said. You had no right to read my messages. You asked me to log into your email, I replied. You didn't even log out of your accounts. And even if you had, this isn't about a random meme. This is about you systematically rewriting our marriage for an audience. He claimed he'd stop posting. For about a week, he was almost painfully nice. Doing dishes without being asked, bringing me tea, calling me babe in that careful tone people use when they're trying not to spook a wild animal. But the trust, something fundamental had cracked. I found myself wondering every time we argued, is he going to turn this into content later? Every time I raised a concern, I could hear the imaginary commenters already. Run, King. She's crazy. Then came the night that truly broke it. We were arguing about money. Very normal, very boring. I was stressed about a surprise car repair. He wanted to buy new gaming equipment. We disagreed about priorities. I was upset but not yelling. I said, "It feels like you care more about your setup than our emergency fund." And he said something snarky back. In the middle of the argument, he suddenly pulled out his phone and held it up, screen side down. "What are you doing?" I asked. He hesitated for half a second too long. "Nothing," he said. "Just checking a notification." I didn't believe him. "Are you recording me?" I asked. He didn't answer. I stepped forward and grabbed the phone. He tried to pull it back, but I'm faster when I'm angry. The screen lit up. He was recording. The timer was at 2:37. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "You're actually doing it," I said. "You're trying to get proof for Reddit or for a lawyer or whoever else needs convincing that I'm the villain." He had the nerve to look indignant. "You're always saying I twist things," he said. "This way I have evidence of how you talk to me." I stared at him. I had never hit someone in my life, but in that moment I understood how people get there. Instead, I put the phone down on the table and said, very quietly, "Get out." He blinked. "What?" "Get out," I repeated. "Go stay with your parents, with a friend, get a hotel, I don't care. But you are not going to live in this house while you secretly record our arguments and upload them for strangers to judge." He scoffed, tried to argue, said I was overreacting again. But something in my face must have told him I was serious. He packed a bag and left. The silence after the door closed was so loud I thought my ears were ringing. For the first few days I walked around in a daze. I worked, fed the dog, slept badly, checked my phone too much. He texted a few times, alternating between angry, "You kicked me out of my own house over nothing," and pitiful, "I miss you, can we talk?" I didn't respond. Instead, one night I opened Reddit. I went back to his throwaway. There were new posts. He'd written an update about how his abusive wife had kicked him out for trying to document her behavior and stolen his phone. He claimed I screamed and threw things. I hadn't even raised my voice. I read the comments. "Stay out, dude. This is your chance. Call a lawyer before she does. You need to protect yourself, she sounds dangerous." Something inside me snapped. I created my own throwaway account. I wrote a post. I didn't name him. I didn't link his posts. I simply wrote, "My husband has been posting about me on Reddit for months, twisting our arguments and painting me as abusive. I found his account by accident. Now he's secretly recording me to get proof. I kicked him out. I don't know what to do next." I laid out actual examples. His unemployed wife, who actually works full-time, the screaming fights that were normal conversations until he recast them, the recording. I tried to be as factual as possible. I admitted my flaws, that I can be blunt, that I cry easily, that I do nag about chores sometimes. I didn't pretend to be perfect. But I also made it clear that turning your spouse into content without their knowledge, lying to thousands of people about them, and then weaponizing those opinions is, at best, deeply messed up. The response was different. There were still some people who said, "We only have your side," which is fair. But most comments were horrified, not at me, at him. Using strangers' validation to gaslight your partner is abuse. Secretly recording your spouse to build a case instead of going to therapy or leaving. Huge red flag. If my husband posted about me like that, I'd never trust him again. One therapist-looking commenter said, "He's outsourcing reality testing to random internet strangers instead of engaging with you directly. That's not sustainable or healthy." Reading those comments didn't magically fix anything, but it helped me feel less insane. A day later, Mark texted me a screenshot. It was my post. "So you're posting too now," he wrote. "Nice." I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back, "You taught me how." He tried to call. I declined. We eventually met up in person at a coffee shop to talk, at his request. Public place, neutral ground. He looked tired. Probably did too. He started with, "I'm sorry you saw my posts. I never meant for you to get hurt by them." I almost laughed. You never meant for me to find out, I said. That's what you mean. He insisted he'd been venting, that he needed support. He said that seeing people validate his feelings had helped him not feel so alone. I asked, has anything anyone said there actually helped you fix our problems? Or has it just made you resent me more? There were still some people who said, we only have your side, which is fair. But most comments were horrified, not at me, at him. Using strangers' validation to gaslight your partner is abuse. Secretly recording your spouse to build a case instead of going to therapy or leaving. Huge red flag. If my husband posted about me like that, I'd never trust him again. One therapist-looking commenter said, he's outsourcing reality testing to random internet strangers instead of engaging with you directly. That's not sustainable or healthy. Reading those comments didn't magically fix anything, but it helped me feel less insane. A day later, Mark texted me a screenshot. It was my post. So you're posting too now, he wrote. Nice. I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back. You taught me how. He tried to call. I declined. We eventually met up in person at a coffee shop to talk, at his request. Public place, neutral ground. He looked tired. Probably did too. He started with, I'm sorry you saw my posts. I never meant for you to get hurt by them. I almost laughed. You never meant for me to find out, I said. That's what you mean. He insisted he'd been venting, that he needed support. He said that seeing people validate his feelings had helped him not feel so alone. I asked, has anything anyone said there actually helped you fix our problems? Or has it just made you resent me more? He didn't answer. After a while I said, we could have gone to couples therapy. You could have asked for a mediator, a real one, not a Reddit sub. You could have told me you were so unhappy. Instead, you created this alternate universe where I'm the villain and you're the beaten down hero. And now you live there more than you live in our actual marriage. He said he'd delete the account. He said he'd stop recording. He said we could try therapy. He said he loved me. I believe he loves me in his own way. I also believe he loves the version of himself that strangers on the internet see even more. Right now, I'm staying at my sister's place, and he's back in our house with the dog. We're doing a trial separation. I'm seeing a therapist regularly. He says he's looking for one, but I don't know if that's true or just another thing he's saying to look good. I don't know yet if I'll file for divorce. Some days I feel like it's the only option. Other days I remember the good years, the inside jokes, the lazy Sundays, and I wonder if there's anything worth salvaging under all this mess. What I do know is that I will never again look at a viral relationship post the same way. Behind every my spouse is crazy story, there's a whole human being whose side we're not hearing. And sometimes that person has no idea they've become a character in someone else's narrative. If you're listening to this and you've ever used the internet as your private jury, ask yourself, are you telling the whole truth? Are you leaving out your own bad behavior? Are you actually trying to fix the problem? Or just looking for people to tell you you're right? And if you're in a relationship where your partner constantly says, everyone I talk to agrees you're wrong, but you never see those conversations, never hear the full context, pay attention. You might not just be arguing with them. You might be arguing with an entire invisible audience you didn't know existed. As for me, I'm still figuring it out. I don't know if I'll end up divorced, in therapy with him, or someday telling this story as something I survived and moved past. But I do know one thing. I'd rather be alone than stay married to someone who cares more about being the main character online than being my partner in real life. So, what would you do in my place? Would you try to rebuild trust with someone who used the internet to rewrite your life? Or would you walk away and start over? Let me know what you think in the comments. I read them all. And if you like stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Reddit Story Vault for more Reddit drama, relationship chaos, and full stories just like this one.